What's up, YouTube? Got a 2016 GMC Yukon Denali. It's got a, I want to say kind of a click or a knock, I guess, when you're trying to steer, and then you kind of lose steering a little bit there while it's doing it. I think I have it narrowed down here that it is the rack and pinion drive belt that's actually in your electronic steering rack and pinion. So I'm going to get the rack and pinion out of here. I just wanted to see if we could pick this up on the mic to hear the noise. So I'll get it set up here. We'll see what we can do. Like I said, it's kind of a clicking noise. So what I'm going to start with here, by getting the rack and pinion out of there, I need to get the steering shaft from the cab off of there. Let's see if I can get you in close enough. So there's a bolt right there underneath that boot, just to the left of it. Need to remove that bolt, and then at that point we try to get the steering shaft from the cab up and off of the electronic steering, power steering rack. The bolt is an 11mm. There's the bolt there. I couldn't get you in there to see what I was doing. You'll want to remove that bolt completely and then pull your steering shaft from the cab off of your electronic power steering. And there I have it removed. You want to make sure you don't turn your steering wheel from here on out, or you could damage components in your steering column. Okay, so now we move to the bottom. I've already got my plastic skid plate off of here. You'll have to remove that first. There's two 15mm up in the front here, and then there's four 10mm socket bolts that hold the bottom. And then from here we got to take the other bracing off here, the brackets to hold your skid plate. So I'll get that done. Okay, so from here we got to get our electrical connectors unhooked. And they are back over this way. It's going to be hard to show. I'll go this way. So there's one here, and then they kind of wrap up the back. So we'll want to get all those disconnected next. Okay, I got you in here the best I can. So to remove these two on the motor itself, on the rack here, you just want to gently pry these back just a little bit. Be careful with it because they're pretty fragile. This is just your lock tab, and you want to push the center in and then pull the clip out completely. Set that aside. And on the top one, you just pry in the middle, pull it back. Okay, now we should be able to get these off here. Push down on the tab, pull it out. Okay, so now we got two plastic clips to pull out. Just use a body clip tool or whatever you want to call it here. Pull those tree clips out of here. Be one there, and there's one back here. Just pull that harness loose from your rack and pinion. Just lay it down like that. Okay, so next we're going to pull the tie rod ends. You want to pull both tie rod ends off. Okay, I don't have a car lift or anything, so I'm actually working on the ground. To pull your tie rod ends, just break it loose with a wrench, which I already did. And then you'll need it. So it's a 13/16 for the nut if it's an OEM tie rod, and then a 10mm on the socket. So you'll have to hold it because they'll spin, and just work the nut off. You'll just do the same for the other side. I'm going to try to take the outer, or be the inner tie rod loose on before I pull the rack out. So I got to get this boot out of my way and get it pulled back. Hard part's trying to get this clamp off because it's one that's been crimped on. Bend it out a little bit. That's all you can do. Going back together, I'll use a zip tie. Okay, once you get the clamp off, you can pull the boot back. Out of the way. Okay, once you get it broke loose, you can spin it off. You'll have to take your tie rod end out of your spindle. A little challenging because there's so many things in the way here. Or near impossible. I'm going to leave it like that until we get it loose. Might be the easiest way to go. So off camera, I jacked the vehicle up, kind of pigeon-toed the wheels out in the front so we had more room up here. I'm going to pull this inner tie rod off now, and I'll remove the bolts for the steering rack. So the bigger ones, they are a 15/16, and then on the passenger side, the one in this frame, the hole in the frame, is an 18. Once you get these loose, it's going to want to drop out, so stay clear. Sorry, I guess there's two 2 on the passenger side, so there's one up top as well. Also an 18mm. Okay, got it on the floor. Okay, so next we got the rack up on the bench here. I'm gonna put a little penetrating oil on these bolts for the motor. Get those soaking. Okay, then we'll take the connector off for the last connector on the motor. Pry the white clip back, pull it off. And you want to push down on the tab here. Careful, I already broke mine. Push right here. Sometimes you have to push in a little bit. Pull it off. Trim tool. One clip here. One clip down here. Get that out of your way. And then down in here there's an inspection for your belt. I just got a regular bolt. Not sure what size it is. Use the bolt and a small pipe wrench. But there's a tab here, or a little mark here and here. You'll just want to go 90 degrees from there. And it cams out. And you pull this out. If you look down inside there, you can see the belt. Some light in it. It's actually curled a little bit. There's a bunch of cogs missing. I don't know if you can see that on the camera or not, but there we go. And it runs off of the drive down there, and the other end's your motor. So I definitely have a belt failure. Just a matter of getting it apart now. I've never removed one of these or disassembled one of these before, and I can't find any information on the web. That's why I figured I'd try to do a video on it. So we'll see if we can get it apart without destroying it. Okay, we'll see if we can get this motor off of here first. I think that's going to be our best bet. Need to take off the 4 bolts here. They are external Torx. Looks like a number 8 or E8. Yeah, that motor has got a lot of material in it. Okay, so I flipped it around here. I'm going to try to get this other internal tie rod out, or inner tie rod off. It's going to be a little challenging off the vehicle, but we'll see if we can get her done. Got a little moisture on this side. Bad. Okay. Got a ground wire on this side you got to be careful for. I think it's a shield wire for your electronics. Get that pulled off before I break it. That aside. Now I think I'm going to try to take this side loose. If we can't get that cover off, see what we have going on in there. It's like one of these are going to be really hard to get because this is in the way. I don't know if that pries off or what. Don't appear to. Instead then. That worked. Now these are a T40. The T40 actually seems a little small, but it did work. Alright, see where that got us. Did remove the cover. Go ahead and mark that. Just in case. So you want to mark this on your where your steering shaft goes. See, I've moved it a little bit. You want to mark that and try to keep it there so things don't get out of time. Okay, so now we've got this in. There's a little ring here, it looks like a lock ring. Pull that out, I marked it where the tab goes in. This tab here. Put a mark there, put a mark on the housing as well. Lay that aside. I'm not sure how the rest of this comes out. I'm assuming it turns to set up the bearing. So we'll want to put another mark on there. Just to get that back where it was supposed to be. Can't tell if there's threads or not. Yep. Okay, so here's what I got going on. I took a punch. I've got a big crescent wrench on your input from the cab shaft on the electronic steering rack. Put a punch in one of these holes here. You kind of have to hold the box down at the same time, or the rack down. Get your pry bar in the underneath the punch, and then just rotate it. It took a little bit for it to pop, but it's moving pretty easy now. And just try to run that all the way out. We'll see what happens here. Hopefully all the balls stay in there. Our belt's getting bound up. No, not yet. Okay, now I think I'll try to turn this. Get enough room to maybe pop it out. So close. Not sure why it's bound. Or maybe it's just dragging. Oh, there we go. Just doesn't have any support anymore, so it's getting bound up. There we are. Okay. Careful for your bearings there. They could come apart. See if we can get this belt fished out of here. And there's the little belt. It was almost ready to go completely, it looks like. Hardly any cogs left on it at all. Okay. I'll get everything cleaned up here. Get all the belt fragments and rust and everything out of there. Do something to protect those bearings while I do that. And we'll, once everything's cleaned up, I gotta order a belt. Order a belt, and once the belt's in, we'll go back together with it. Okay, it's been a couple days now. Here's the old belt. It's seen better days. So I've got the new belt here. It's from Power Steering Seals. Take a look at it, make sure that it's the correct one here. Appears to be the same length. Same width as well. Feels a little stiffer than the old one. It is an import, so could be the difference there. I noticed that the bands or the actual cogs on the belt are a little angled, so I don't know if that matters which way you put it or not. I guess we'll try it both ways here. Yeah, it don't appear to matter on there. Looks like it'll work. I cleaned all the grooves out of my pulley. It looks pretty good now, I think. So we're ready to assemble. I need to find some grease for these bearings. So I don't have any actual grease that they call for. So I'm going to use a little, I think this is synthetic wheel bearing grease. Yeah, high temp wheel bearing grease. It seems about the same consistency as what's on there. So I'll try to smear some of that in there. And they still have grease, but just an extra precaution. You don't want to get too much grease in here either, because I imagine it's going to get on your belt and cause more problems later, so use it sparingly. Fish your belt over everything here. Get it back in place in here. Somehow. Get it up in the cavity. You can reach through on the other side where that inspection hole is. It has kind of a casting in there that you gotta fish it around. Kind of blocks it from going in. There we go. It's got to kind of shove it in there, I guess. Try to get it back in the housing to hopefully the bearing won't interfere with it when it comes in. So we'll see how that goes here. And just rotate it back in until it passes through. Be careful to make sure your belt don't get caught by the bearing. Looking good so far. Belt's still good. We're getting a little tight going in the housing here. I'm going to try to tap that bearing in a bit. Using a brass punch, you don't want to use anything too hard on that bearing, or you could chip it. There we go. Take your time, just a little bit at a time here. Okay, I think we're there. Alright, then you want to get your lock, the retainer for your bearing, which is this piece. Looks like I need to clean that a little bit. Had a little rust in mine, I don't know. Must have been from that boot being loose or not sealing completely. Okay, get this started back in there. So we're close there. Now, I don't know what this is supposed to be torqued to or the preload of that bearing. So what we want to do, if I can find my punch, is just tap it back to where the line is. The line we marked when we disassembled it. this line here. We'll just want to line that up and then put our lock ring on there like it's supposed to be. Looks pretty close there. Maybe just a touch more. There we go. Okay, then the lock ring we want to put in the tab. If you can see this, where we had the mark here for the tab. I want to put this back on there, line that up, and that should lock everything where it's supposed to be, where it was before. Just like so. Okay, next we want to get the outer cover ready here. One thing I want to check to make sure this belt is working. Now that we got that bearing set. And it's moving the rack, so it's doing its job, which is good. Next we'll put our end cap on here. Make sure your O-ring is good and clean before you go back together. Put a little bit of grease on it to help seal it. Okay, so mine I did a mark on it, so I knew where it went just in case there was a difference on it. Except the lock ring wants to jump off of there, so careful for that. Okay, we want to get that lined up. Get your bolt started. Okay, and the last one we can't get to, so we got to use a double pipe wrench again. Snug them up a little bit. Okay, so all those are tight. We'll try our rack here, make sure it still works good. Line up our mark where we previously had it. Okay, next I'll put the motor in. Make sure the belt's seated. Rack is still moving in and out, so we should be good there. Same on this, it's got an O-ring. Make sure it's good and clean, still good. You don't want any moisture in here because that'll destroy components pretty quickly. Make sure your mounting surface is clean. A bit of lubrication. Okay. So we want to throw this back on there. only one way that this motor will go on, so you can't mess that up. You want to come in at an angle and catch your belt, and then move it over and kind of get it lined up somewhat. And you want to grab your bolts and get them started. Now 3 of these holes are slotted on your steering sector side for adjustment on that belt. Couldn't find any information on the tension, so I think I'm just going to put it back where you can obviously tell where the motor was mounted and kind of see how that feels. This hole right here is the one that's not slotted. It's your pivot point. Belt is fully engaged from what I can feel here through the inspection hole. Move it back and forth. That's good. I'll try to swing this up and get it where it used to be. Without getting a pry bar out, that's as tight as I can get it. And we look to be at the same spot that it used to be when it was originally installed. Not sure what the torque on these are, but don't get too carried away. They're a pretty small bolt. So I'm going to try and get this shoved up in there. Might be a little challenging by myself here, but we'll try to give it a try. So you want to start by getting your outer tie rod or your tie rod up and over that other A-arm. Get it fed in there. Get it kind of in position. And get your bolts ready. You want to put a little bit of blue Loctite on these, because you don't want your steering to come off. I just put a little bit on the bolt, get those ready to go. They have some embedded on them already from the factory, but just a little extra precaution. Okay, let's see how this will go here. See if I can get it up in there. Feels like I got one started. Get the 2 for the other side. Same thing, just a little bit of blue Loctite. One thing I forgot is you got to make sure your harness is down here. Just want to run these in a little bit on each one of them, snug them, and then we'll tighten them. Next we'll get our wiring back in. You want to clean out your connectors again, blow them out with compressed air. And the clips go on the end here, the tree clip. What's left of it, they get tore up pretty bad. Should be enough to hold it. Start with our upper one. Next one down until they click. And don't forget your lock tabs. You got that part done. Okay, next we will put our tie rod in. The inner tie rod on the driver's side. Okay, we're going to put the tie rod on the driver's side. Inner tie rod. So now we want to get our tie rod in. Drop it down in. Find the hardware. Just in reverse order how we removed it. You want to set your wrench on the nut. Socket on the bolt portion of it. Just run it in. Now I'll move to the other side and repeat these steps. So next you want to put your steering shaft from the cab back on your steering sector. As long as your wheel hasn't turned. It's got a kind of a hex or a flat spot, two flat spots on the shaft. So you want to keep your shaft, the steering shaft from the cab, about the same spot that you had it when you removed it. And then you want to just rotate it back and forth a little bit, and it should fall right on there. Make sure it makes a solid sound like that. Make sure it's all the way on. And we'll grab our bolt. Probably wouldn't hurt to put just a dab of Loctite on this as well. Just a little dab of blue Loctite. Get all back together there. It's back under the truck here, and we'll start it up, see if our noise went away, see if we have power steering. Okay, so now I just need to put the skid plate back on and go take it for a test drive. Everything seems good. No issues. Seems to steer like it used to, so looks like that took care of the issue. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comment section. I'll do my best to answer any questions you have. All in all, this isn't a very bad job to do. I thought it was fairly easy. Worst part's pulling the rack out, but even that's not too bad. So thanks for watching.